of you. So what if...
Hello, my name's Tom Walker. Welcome to what is the Christmas edition of That'll Be the Day. In this, fairly festive podcast, I'm going to be speaking to a disabled poet and budding comedian. But before we hear from Shaun Fallows, if you like the music at the start of this podcast, it's a track called That'll Be the Day by the Liverpool band The Vow. And your Christmas bonus this year is that there's also some lovely festive music by the fabulous visually impaired singer Andrea Begley. Now, earlier this year, I did a quick interview with Shaun Fallows, which featured in a podcast I produced for Dada Fest in March. At the time, I remember thinking that Shaun would have much more to say, and as you'll hear, he didn't let us down. Sit back and enjoy half an hour in the company of Shaun Fallows. Well, I record these podcasts in a wide range of locations, and today I'm in Costa Coffee in Robin Park in Wigan, and with me is Shaun Fallows. Shaun, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Tom. A bit of a cold, but I'm good other than that.
Christmas is on the horizon, pretty imminent. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I am a lot, yeah. I wasn't always a Christmassy kind of person, but me and my partner have just sorted things out and got a Christmas tree and everything up, and I think I've become more Christmassy because of that, you know.
Well, full disclosure, I know your partner, Chrissy.
Yeah, we're excited because we're just moving into a new flat together, and that's something that I never imagined for myself, and I think that's given me a new take on things, because you're not always just alone with your own thoughts, you know. I've always liked my own company, but that's bad when it's too often.
And for you as a wheelchair user, I imagine you've had to make sure that the new place is going to be fully accessible.
Yeah, I mean it was a nightmare, that, to be honest. We could do a full podcast on sort of the ins and outs of that, because a lot of places that we assume would be more helpful, particularly like social services and things, they weren't that helpful towards trying to advise you with things, and it felt always kind of like we was being blocked, and it was an eye-opener for myself, really. But yeah, we were really chuffed that that's changed. We just got a little bit of a sort of a mini Christmas miracle, really.
Fantastic. Well, the reason obviously I wanted to talk to you today was mainly about your art and the challenges you face as a disabled person. You do a lot of poetry, and I've seen you do some comedy as well. Tell me about your poetry and comedy. Where does all that come from?
I think, to be honest with you, I've always thought it like... I think if I didn't get the ideas out, I was always worried that I'd go a bit round the bend, a bit crazy. I know it's not politically correct, but I thought, well, if I don't get these thoughts out, they're going to kind of eat me up, because I got so frustrated sometimes, and then it was a weird thing. The more I got them ideas out, I suddenly thought, hold on, I'm not as miserable about the stuff as I thought. There's quite a lot of dark humour, and I think for me, that was the trick to it, that if you show people a really kind of tricky subject but make them laugh, you can poke fun at things and realise it's not as bad as you originally thought.
For people who don't know your poetry, tell us about that. Tell me about the kinds of subjects you cover.
Well, I mean, early ones I did was like I did a poem about going speed dating, and with my wheelchair, I always introduce it by saying it's not very fast at all, really. It's quite misleading to call it speed dating, because we had to go around like so many different kind of different little entrances to get in the building. It was like a Bear Grylls operation just to get in, and I always say that in the poem. And then other things I cover is when I was at college, which was kind of, I suppose, a catalyst for my life changing. I shared a room with a guy who was a lot more severe than me, and just looking at that care system, really, there was some amazing staff who couldn't do enough to help him, but there was some staff, like, I suppose that's life in general, there were some staff who didn't do the job very well, and it scared the life out of me. And I thought, if I don't pull my finger out and start doing some things for myself, that was going to be me. And it really changed my persona and myself, because I thought you have to start doing a few more things, waking up a little bit.
You mentioned there college being the catalyst for your life changing. What was your life like before college then?
To be honest with you, it was really nice when I was a kid, but I think people can sort of give you too much kindness and protect you too much, because I was an only child, and my mum I think was a little bit scared of me trying to do things and worried about me trying to be independent, worried about if I had accidents, if I didn't do things right, and maybe as well if I was at school and I went to like a specialist disabled only school at the time, and I think she was probably worried that I was a lot more timid then, so I think she thought I'd probably get bullied if I went to mainstream, because then you see, with it being the late 80s, schools weren't set up to think about that, and I think my mum just was worried that it wouldn't pan out right.
I think the parents of disabled children from the beginning of time have always worried about them going out on the street, playing with people, going to mainstream, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do a poem in my book actually, again about my school, and it was a lovely place. We had lovely teachers who couldn't do enough, but in a way they did so much that you were protected from how the real world is. So when I left school and you see that the real world's not set up like that, it was a massive shock to the system, because you feel a little bit like you've been tricked. It's unintentional, but because they shield you from so much of it, it was a massive surprise that no one was willing to help me as much.
So when you went to college, what was the contrast like?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I never I picked the college on a really weird reason, to be honest, because I've always been quite a sporty person, and I love going to the gym. So because I was on a sports course, I just thought, oh, we've got a gym, I'll be in the gym every day. So I picked it because I saw a good gym, which it sounds quite a weird reason to pick your college. But and then as the college slowly developed and I spent more time on the course, I realised that there was all these people from all over the world, and we had a Canadian fitness instructor who was a big influence, because he got me into loads of different music like Bob Dylan and Jimi Hendrix and Neil Young, and rather than sort of shun me away from poetry, I showed him some of my poetry one day. I opened a massive file up and said, these are some of the things I've been writing, and I thought, to be honest, because my confidence was a bit low, I thought he was going to tell me off and say, get back to doing your sport, but he just said, have you got any more of those things? And I think that's the brilliant thing about really amazing teachers and really amazing people. If they're really good at what they do, they show you everything, and they don't close your options off.
Shaun, you mentioned there about the lecturer who you showed some poetry to. What was that poetry covering? What was the subject matter?
It's funny, I think like a lot of my cousins when I was growing up were in bands, so I think in my brain I thought I was going to be the next Paul Weller, but I couldn't really sing, which was a bit of a problem, and then I don't think I'd really thought it through. I think I just thought, I'm going to do what my cousins are doing and be up there on stage, and then I think the poems, what I was trying to cover then were I think they were just trying to copy what I'd listened to really, so they were like, I loved the Jam, so they were trying to sort of, I suppose, rip off Paul Weller without realising it.
Weller and Dylan?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there was hints to kind of frustrations there that I felt about my disability, but I didn't really know how to put those things across.
How did you feel about your disability at the time then?
Well, I think it's funny because maybe it's a stereotype, but because you grow up watching sort of the Paralympics is the only thing that you see on telly for disability. I originally was like so focused on the disability sports path that I'd not really considered, poetry or any other thing, and it was just by accident really that I thought, well, I'll try that as well. But I think that was one of the big things that I think most disabled people, it's sort of subconsciously drummed into you that you have to be a Paralympian, and if you're not a Paralympian or you're not good at sport, then it's tough luck really.
So when did you make the transition from thinking about sport over to poetry and comedy? Was it just after you left college, or while you were there still, were you still kind of making that sort of thought process? Was that thought process going on there?
I think it was halfway through the college course, to be honest. Like, I'd always get some of my tutors say, we had another tutor and he'd always say, oh, it's really good what you're writing, but don't forget you have to do the sport course, this is what you've signed up for. So there was always a bit of the Canadian tutor was always great. He was like trying to give me leeway to do stuff, and then we had another tutor who was a bit more, he was a lovely fella, but he was more old school. He was like, just focus on your sport and everything else comes second. But I think halfway through I realised that, hold on, I might be a bit better at the poetry than the sport, because I wasn't the greatest like agility wise for moving. The cerebral palsy is quite tight in my shoulders, so I'd played a little bit of wheelchair basketball and stuff and wheelchair rugby, but halfway through those things I made a lot of good friends, but I sort of made the realisation myself that they were a different level than me. If your body can't do something, your body can't do it. It's as simple as that. And you know, I enjoyed the time doing the wheelchair basketball and rugby, but quite a lot of my friends said, do you know what, you're quite funny, maybe you should be doing something a little bit different, really.
Can you remember your first live gig then?
Not really. If I'm honest, I think that night I probably had so much Guinness I couldn't see. The room where we used to be in was a really old Gothic style pub called the Tudor House near the bus station in Wigan, and I always remember it because it was always one of them things where I'll touch on later with poetry, but you couldn't get on the stage, so I was like doing the poem like in sort of an audience with. I was like nearly in the audience, and I couldn't see anybody's faces, and I just remember thinking, well, it's good that I can't see the faces, because I weren't nervous because I couldn't see anybody.
What reaction did you get?
I think it was good. To be honest with you, I always thought I'd gone down not very good, and then I'd always get a better reaction than I thought, and I think it was because, without realising, you know, nobody knows anything about anybody's life. So suddenly, if you say something about your chair that you might make a little bit humorous, you know, people think, oh, I didn't realise that. I've gone past someone the other day and I didn't think that. And it's just making that connection between that you're living every day.
I saw you on YouTube talking about your smartwatch, and in particular how many steps you've done. Can we check how many steps you've done?
Yeah. It always says about 5,000, but do you know what I mean? I'm an optimist, but that's never going to be the case, is it?
Don't forget your coffee, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't want it to go cold.
Yeah, I'm an optimist, but there's no way I've done 5,000 steps, is there? Not from birth, to be honest. But yeah.
It's great to have some humour, though, isn't it? I think a lot of disabled people. I interviewed Chris McCausland for my Christmas podcast a couple of years ago, and he uses his visual impairment as very much a source of humour. Do you use your disability in the same way in some respects, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weird when I do the poem. I think it's like working it through in my own brain. So if I'm really annoyed, I'll write a poem, and then by the end of the poem, I've laughed about it that much, or I've thought about it that much. It doesn't bother me as much because you've worked it through in your own brain. And also, you know, I think it's coming to the realisation that it's like the podcast we're doing now. Do you know what I mean? For all the frustrations, I'm sat here doing a podcast with you. I'm moving with my partner to a new place. So you get through things. You know, you've figured out your own way of getting through things, and you're still living, which is the end goal.
So the poetry and the comedy became a bit of therapy for you then, did they?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a surprise to me, and it still is, that like, I still find it really weird that people clap your thoughts in a room. I think it's a really strange thing that people just clap when you give your thoughts, because I always say to my partner Chrissy that I feel when I write them, I write the poems that quick that I feel like they're really easy. I think anybody could do it, and then she says not everybody could do it. That's because you've got a talent at it. But I just think it's so straightforward to do. I think, why is everybody not doing this?
Tell me about the process then of writing the poem. Where does the idea come from? Do you have a particular place where you sit and write? How does it work?
For me, it always usually starts if there's a comedy bit to it. I think that's how it's changed from when I was younger, to be honest. When I was younger and I was in the Tudor House pub and I first started, I think a lot of my poems came because I was angry. I was probably like a disabled Sid Vicious. I was a bit angry.
You find a lot of disabled people, particularly when they're younger, are quite angry, don't you?
Yeah, I think I was more angry then, and I was like, I couldn't believe that people hadn't thought of stuff, that they hadn't taken stuff into account, because I kept thinking, well, I'm a young person, how can you not think of these things when it's going to be the future that we have to have? But
carry on, Shaun.
And then I think as I got older, I think as my life progressed, and I thought, well, it's like as I was just saying to you, that you sort of realise that even through all the stresses, you're finding your way through and you're muddling through. Then I think I lightened up a bit and I started putting more humour in, because at the end of the day, it's like when I look at yourself, you've got the issue, but it's not stopping you, it's not killing you, it's not fatal, you're still managing your way through it.
I've got to confess, when I was younger, I wasn't fully aware of how inaccessible the world was, particularly for wheelchair users. For me, of course, I was fully aware of it as a visually impaired person. How have things changed now? Are things generally better, or do you still come across a lot of inaccessibility around the place?
Yeah, I think it depends where you live. Since meeting Chrissy and doing a lot more things in Liverpool, I'd never say anywhere's perfect, but Liverpool has a better attempt, if you like, and it's got a lot of things going better. Where my town, Wigan, I'm really, really proud of being from here, but it's always been atrocious. It's really bad.
What's bad about Wigan?
There's very few cafes that you can get in easily with a chair. There's very few pubs you can get in easily with a chair. I mean, I'm not a big drinker, but if I was, you can't really find easy access to pubs or anywhere. And just for example, if my partner was to stay in Wigan with me, we'd struggle to find music venues where you can go out and listen to some music or do anything to socialise. We'd have to go to Liverpool and Manchester, and you always hear the argument that but them's bigger cities, so they can do that. And I don't think that's always going to be an excuse for a town. You still have a right to live wherever you want to live, and that's still your town.
It's 30 years since the Disability Discrimination Act and 15 years since the Equality Act. Have they improved things in any way for you?
From what I've looked at it and what I've understood of the Disability Discrimination Act, it's so vague that it lets big companies and big industry off the hook. If you make a rule that's really, really vague, they don't have to stick to it. They can just say, we've tried our best. And I think the attitude towards it is help them poor people out if you can, but if you don't, then don't bother about it. If and it should be rules that are made to be achieved.
That must be hugely frustrating, I imagine. You mentioned their pubs, cafes, restaurants, and all that sort of stuff. You go out with Chrissy and you think, we'll just go to that Indian restaurant or wherever it might be. It doesn't have to be an Indian restaurant, it could be a pub or whatever. You get there and suddenly you find there's a dirty big step outside, or the toilets are upstairs, or the accessible loo's used as a rubbish disposal room. Yeah,
I mean, it's funny, do you know what I mean? You see so many places that that happens a lot, where they'll have steps in a building, but they've got a really big disabled toilet if you can get down the steps. Now that is the strangest thing. But I think the problem is they have to trust that disabled people know things and they can do things, because I'm always saying to Chrissy that I don't. It's like when you were saying to me then, Tom. I have to confess the same thing, that from my point of view, I think it's only human nature that you only think of your own issue, and I don't know about being blind. I hardly ever think about it until I met you, and when I went to Age UK, there was a fella there who had a guide dog, and I only really looked at it then. But I think that's human nature. Do you know what I mean? You can have you could have guilt and think, I don't think about this, I don't think about this. But I think every human person is in a little bubble.
Do you think we as disabled people don't find enough common cause with each other, that we are in our own little bubbles?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm always saying to Chrissy that I think one of the big problems is there's not a massive collection of really strong like voices, like sort of maybe celebrity wise, who keep it constantly out there on the front foot. And I think because you have the added feeling of always being aware of what you can say and what you can do, like I think you're sort of afraid to sort of pressurise too much, because say for instance I was sort of a really well-known disabled comedian. I'd have to be careful of what I said, because I'd be worried that they'd take me off the TV.
And when it comes to diversity, disabled people, we are very much still at the bottom of the pile, aren't we?
I'm always saying to Chrissy as well, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but there's like a league table of issues, and disability for me has always been in the relegation zone. If you think of it like football, disability has always been in the bottom three, and for some reason we've just not got the issue up there. What matters?
What needs to change, and whatever those changes are, how do we go about achieving them?
You know, I mean, I was trying to think myself when I was a kid, and I always feel embarrassed to think that, like, I only ever recently looked at Ian Dury as a role model. I only recently got into Ian Dury, and I started getting vinyl records. But before then, I wasn't really aware of Ian Dury that much. But I think it needs people like Ian Dury who've got a bit of like spikiness, a bit of thing to put themselves out there and not be afraid to say what they think.
We mentioned Paul Weller and Bob Dylan before.
Yeah.
Is Ian Dury similarly a bit of a role model for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I feel a bit embarrassed that only recently I've looked into more of his career and his life, but I found so many parallels to what I felt as growing up. Like I found this track listing that he did on Vodafone Music, and it's basically, I thought it was songs, but they basically just ask him 6 questions about growing up and like what his school life was like. And there's so many things in common to what is still happening now, and part of that feels really good, because I thought, oh, there's a kindred spirit. But then you think, well, 30 years ago and he was still saying the same thing, and it made me feel sad that it's not moved that much.
Well, you've been talking so much, I think you deserve a break. You've got some coffee there, but just before we have our break, I'm going to play a bit of Christmas music. Can you remember which track I'm going to play?
Oh, Holy Night by Andrea Begley.
Have your coffee.
Oh, cheers.
Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Saviour's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, while yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, who hear the
So that was Oh Holy Night by the brilliant, amazing Andrea Begley, and Shaun is very much still with me. And Shaun, you've got a book coming out fairly soon called Explaining Elephants, I think it is?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I think it's just sort of... I think it's sort of feeling a lot more comfortable with myself. I think maybe that's that cliche of age, but I do feel more comfortable with myself. I know since meeting Chrissy, I feel a lot calmer in myself. But I think before then, without realising, I felt a lot of need to explain the church to everyone. And
is that what this is about, really? About your need, your feeling, at least, that you need to explain things?
Yeah. I mean, that thing of the elephant in the room. However confident I felt in myself, I always felt like the chair was the elephant in the room, and it's still just looking at those things and saying, do you know what? It's not the elephant anymore. Maybe society is the elephant, the problem.
So you thought that you were the problem rather than society at one time?
Yeah. I don't know if I thought I was the problem, but I always felt like it was down to me to explain. And then what I think I've realised as I get older is, you can't take it's the old saying, isn't it? You can't take an horse to drink or whatever. You can only say so many things. You can't force people to change stuff. And I think a lot of the book is about as well that you knowing which battles to fight. I know the things that work in my life, the things that I really enjoy, the little bubble that I have, and I also know the things that sadly I think aren't going to change for a very long time. And you have to be happy with what you have in that little bubble and say, do you know what, I can go to fight that battle, but some battles I probably have to pull away from. And
Chrissy's dad has done some of the illustrations for you.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be a couple of really good illustrations in there. I mean, I was telling one of my friends the other day, I go to a coffee morning on a Thursday for Wigan Athletic, and the fella runs a Wigan Athletic podcast, and I've asked him, can I do like a little launch thing there? And I said to him that one of the new poems is about, because I saw a disabled spider in my shower, and he said, disabled spider? And I said, yeah. I said, I thought it had vertigo. I said it couldn't get up the wall. And I said I felt really bad for it. I said I sang it some Barry Manilow, and it was just for me it was a really surreal thing, because when I saw the spider what couldn't get up, I thought, I know it's sort of oversimplistic and maybe a bit cheesy, but everybody has got some kind of issue, some kind of problem that they face, and to me that's the other thing to explaining elephants, that I don't know why we haven't looked at it sooner, because everyone is going to get old. We have a population that is changing, and if you put that stuff in early, do you know what I mean? I think a lot of people look at disability actors and think, well, you're only saying it from a selfish point of view, but you would save the country so much money if you put it in now, and then if you did it in, like, say, 5-year increments, every 5 years you did so many disability changes, then you wouldn't to me you wouldn't have a country we're trying to scramble to catch up.
Without the need for spoiler alerts, just give me an idea of a couple of the poems you've got in the new book.
Yeah, well, I've got the spider in my show one. I've got one called Potential, and it's funny because maybe that's something to do with getting older, but maybe coming to Liverpool as well, because I'd never seen a lot more disabled people since I came to Liverpool. It's very unusual if you're in Wigan that you see a lot of, I think over the course of my life you only see a few disabled people, and you start thinking that there's only you, so you're very insular. And when I went to Liverpool and you see there's a lot more disabled people knocking about, you think, oh, there's a big tribe of us, we just don't get out enough.
You talked about the wheelchair being the elephant in the room, but you did some travelling in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And you were telling me there that your wheelchair just wasn't as much of a problem, if a problem at all.
No, I mean, it's funny. I think there was some things there where, transport was better, but it was like swings and roundabouts, because transport was better, but yet disabled toilets were quite tricky. But the transport was a lot better, a lot more organised. I mean, I always remember once when I was going to a Dutch city called Haarlem. It's the original one before New York, actually. It's spelt with a double A. It's a really nice city. And I was on my way to there, and the train was a minute late, and the guy got on his walkie-talkie and he was furious. And I said, our train's never come, mate. I said, that's really good that it's only a minute late.
And how accessible was the train when when it did arrive?
Really good. I mean, to be honest, it's a similar system to here that you have to ask for the ramp, and I'm always having a debate with Chrissy and saying that, like, that's where the Merseyrail is fantastic. I mean, Chris is always saying, like, Steve Rotherham would love me because, like, I should advertise Merseyrail, because ever since I've been on it, I just bang on about how amazing that is. But
level access.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if one city can do it, that should be rolled out across everywhere.
Merseyrail's a bit of a benchmark for you then, is it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, do you know what I mean? I think it's all connected up some, do you know what I mean? Because for me, if you want disabled people to be fully living in life and fully active and going doing things, then you have to have a transport network that can accommodate. I mean, I don't mind getting on the train now, but the system where you have to give 2 hours notice, I'm always laughing with Chrissy and saying, well, I'm not on a jail tag. What if I want to be spontaneous and I meet my friend and we suddenly bump into each other and I say, oh, I've not seen you for years, let's go for a coffee. Do I turn around and say, well, sorry, I've got my train booked, I'll have to go?
To what extent does society here in the UK, and maybe even further afield, want us to fully participate in life?
I mean, to be honest with you, do you know what I mean? I, like yourself, I've had times where I've been really down about my disability and times when I've felt amazing. When you're on stage doing the poetry, I feel like sometimes when it really clicks, I feel like, oh, this is what I was always meant to do, and nothing feels better. But part of me thinks as well that, like, if I didn't have that, it sounds sad, but I don't know how much society really fully believes it wants you to be involved.
Before we finish on the book, where can people find it? It's called Explaining Elephants. Yeah. Where will it be available? When's it being published, etc.?
It's on I just do it on a self-publishing website. I use lulu.com, and if you type my name in the search boxes, you'll see the other 3 books that I've got, and they all just come up there. But I'm going to put Explaining Elephants on there, and I mean, my big worry, I think it's a confidence thing that, like, I always wonder whether the stuff I've wrote, the new stuff, is as good as the first stuff, and I always think I'm going to run out of ideas. Chrissy said, just keep coming out with your ideas and don't worry about it. But it's, I think when you're a bit paranoid, it's a bit easier said than done, really.
So let's get it right. Shaun Fallows, SHAUN FALLOWS.
OWS, yeah.
We got it. So search for Shaun Fallows, and it's lulu.com.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest as well, Tom, I don't know whether that's a normal thing. What all creative people do, but I'm really terrible for. Chrissy will tell me off because I'll say, well, I'm not. It's not as good as Emery Normals. It's not as good as Paul Weller's. It's not up there with Bob Dylan, is it? And I think you have to. I don't know if I'll ever be comfortable with just saying, well, it's just me own. I'm always thinking, well, if it's not always sort of a fantastic, brilliant poem every time in my brain, I'm always saying that if I've not wrote me going underground or down in a tube station, I might just pack it in. But Chrissy said, just keep going with it.
You never know.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, when my Canadian tutor was saying about Bob Dylan, I don't think he knows how many albums he's wrote. Just a freak of nature, really.
So it's all been a bit heavy, disability, access and everything else.
Yeah.
Let's lighten the load a bit now and talk about Christmas. It's, as I say, on the horizon, pretty imminent. So what are you and Chrissy and other members of your family up to?
Yeah, well, we're going to have just like normal Christmas. I'm going to go to my mum's, and my mum will come to mine, and I'll make her a latte because she's just got really big into lattes. So I've got a coffee machine, so I'll make her a latte, and I'm going to make her Christmas dinner. And Chrissy's having Christmas dinner with her mum and dad, and then Boxing Day she's going to come to mine. So we're going to do that as normal, and then we're planning to get moved in for the new year in Southport, and we're really looking forward to that.
You've got loads to look forward to by the sound of it. Are you and Chrissy Christmassy people?
I think Chris is a lot more Christmassy than I was. I think for me, I don't know. I think that was probably with being on my own a lot as well. I never. It was just always just another a day to me that you do, and then before you knew it, it was gone. But now, since me and Chrissy met each other, I really, and like me and my mum have connected a lot more than we used to, because me and my mum didn't always have a good relationship, so it's nice to have that connection again now. I like going to my mum's and making sure I do Christmas dinner and, you know, making sure my mum's got a little tree up and stuff.
Well, I hope you and Chrissy and the rest of your family have a lovely Christmas.
And you, Tom, I hope it's a lovely Christmas, mate. I hope you stay safe and not too many beers.
And thanks for your time today as well. It's been a really interesting and fascinating conversation. So thanks very much.
No worries. I think your podcast was great when I've listened to it, Tom. It really thorough, mate. Really, really well done. And you do a good job with it, mate. Brilliant.
I didn't pay him to say that, honestly.
No.
Shaun Fallows, thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Well, thanks once again to Shaun there for his time and for speaking so openly. Well, it's Christmas, so if you're celebrating, Merry Christmas. Hope you have a great time. And this seems to me like a really appropriate vow song because it's got peace in the title, basically. It's called Peace in Our Time.
Today, yeah. The cool winds of dawn phased me out. I couldn't beat the countdown. At last, without grace, I've learned how to lose. I'm on the tack that brings me back to you. I don't know, but I'm told that the truth is stranger than fiction. An ominous, anonymous message we all miss. Can a Jesus freak speak with no obvious conviction? I'll take it from you, I'm part of this. But did you ever dream of peace in our time? You couldn't keep your people in line. Maybe we should try and spend a little more time together, together, together. Somewhere, someone crash died their life, making peace like there was no tomorrow. I know, 'cause I saw the last days of Earth as it creeped inside, sank and died alone. There's a letter in the sand and it's signed, sealed and scented. An asinine line someone forgot to send to the only true blue that the human race invented. Is all of our hearts, world without end. But did you ever dream